All right, we're live. So we're doing review. We are reviewing participles, and I use reviewing because that is a participle. It is an ing word, which is what participles tend to do. Um, well, let's talk about. I guess let me hear from you guys. Uh, what is your current understanding of the participle? I mean, we just kind of dived into it on Tuesday with you guys with Dave, but where's your understanding with it as we kind of before we get into it today?
This probably isn't a fantastic answer, but my understanding of it is that it's it's not the main verb of a sentence, but it is it sometimes I don't know if I'm phrasing this right. Sometimes works as a verb, sometimes adverbially, and sometimes adjectively.
Yeah.
And one of my main questions wasn't the present tense end in ing, I believe or I am believing. And so I kind of am trying to understand that, one functions as a main function in a sentence, and this one just kind of functions as like a parentheses almost, but I know that's probably not right. I completely lost, I wasn't aware of the English understanding of it when we got into it. And
Gotcha. Maybe we can cover some of
Dave
that.
helped a little bit for sure. Well, he helped a lot.
Gotcha.
It's just it was a lot to take in since it was kind of an overview.
Yeah, I understand. And that was he kind of prefaced some of his stuff that he sent us, kind of like filling us in. He kind of prefaced it with that, like it's going to take a few weeks for it to really make sense, which is fine. Like as that's totally fine. Sam.
Um, just learning that the two ways that it can work as an adjective or an adverb, you know, that side of it. I don't know, like I said, because we did a lot of just overview and kind of talking about it and looking at some of it. But I think I'll have more questions and everything like that, and more understanding of it as we start really getting into that side of using it and going from there.
Okay. Well, I guess that gives me an idea of uh, a better sense of how to approach it. I suppose. Um, Andres, do you want to add anything?
Well, yes. Perhaps about what I think this is related to what Jake mentioned. Even when they look and when they use morphemes like the verb stem in present aorist or perfect, these are not necessarily verbs. They are participles. That's why they don't reflect time, right? What they reflect is uh, oh, I forgot the word. Um, let me see if I can. Aspect is what they reflect instead of time. That's why when you go with the Oristen stem, you don't have the augment
Mm-hmm.
because you don't want to reflect the time as a past event, but what you want to reflect is an undefined action. What you are taking is the aspect, which is, by the way, something that the verbs have as well. But participles doesn't have uh, the time part, even when they use verb stems in their composition.
Mm-hmm. And so it was uh, the aspect. That's the complete, perfective and imperfective.
Mhm.
Yeah. It does reflect tense, but that doesn't necessarily reflect time. Tense doesn't necessarily reflect time.
Yeah, that's correct.
I know that we kind of maybe struggle with that in English because we think, oh, well, it's either future tense or past tense or present tense. But that's not how the Greek tenses necessarily work. Some of those things are reflected in certain tenses, but it's just not as straightforward in Greek as it is in English.
I
I feel
mean, like,
like that's all of Greek.
Sure, fair point.
What was it was, I can't remember if it was this past class or the past before. You have the aspect, which is the kind of action, and then there was something else that described not the kind of action, but the continuous effects of the action.
Oh, that was the perfect tense.
Oh, the perfect tense. Okay.
Yeah, that was last week.
Okay.
The perfect tense is completed action with, I guess, ongoing repercussions felt by the speaker.
yeah,
Oh, this be that's right.
you're
Okay.
right, completely right.
Gotcha.
Pluperfect is almost like an extension of the aorist, where it is a completed action, but there's some duration of the effects felt. So it's like an aorist plus some shockwave, if you will.
Gotcha. Okay.
So something, this is not really, I don't know where this fits in with your understanding of this now. Maybe you get it better than I did. But when I think of the terms adjectival and adverbial, my mind doesn't automatically process what that is. So I think it's helpful for us to just kind of spell it out in these terms, or at least for me, that when a participle functions adjectivally, it's just modifying a noun. And adverbially, it's just modifying the verb or the main verb in the sentence, or a verb in a sentence. But I think typically like the main verb of the sentence.
So, okay.
Go ahead.
So adjectively modifies a noun generally, and adverbally modifies a verb.
Yeah, just like adjectives modify nouns. And
I don't know if we use an example for that. When you say modify, is it more like add on or kind of clarify? Or
it gives more information about a noun or a verb.
Okay.
Depending on context. So there is
26 1 and 2 show, like in English wise, it's serving to help a verb and then it's serving to help a noun on that.
yeah.
Just read the chapter. Is point number 1.
No,
You're right. It's right there. Yeah, the man eating by the window is my great teacher. After eating, I will go to bed. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So if a sentence doesn't have a main verb and you only see a participle, then it's not a sentence. So a sentence has to have a verb. A participle can't function. It can't replace a verb. It can only modify one or give information about the main verb. So even if the verb is the to be verb is, there was an example I saw on one of these pages about that. Might be in chapter 27. Or it might not be. I don't remember. If the sentence has the word is as the verb, then the participle is probably going to be used to modify the noun, the main noun in the sentence.
If it's functioning as a verb,
No,
I thought you said verb. I'm sorry.
no, it's hard to say it functions as a verb. It really doesn't. It functions as a participle, and
Hmm.
it has qualities of a verb and qualities of an adjective.
Yeah.
It has both of those qualities, and so um, it just gives more information about either a noun or a verb.
Yeah, I think that's why the writer of the book help us teaching us first nouns and then verbs and then participles. That makes perfect sense because now you can get the information you have in nouns and then the information on verbs. And since this makes both of them, now you are equipped with all the parts that are the components of this.
Mm-hmm. So look on 26.9.
0.9.
Yeah, 26.9 on
Okay.
page 293. So that sentence there under the adverbial section says, while studying for his Greek final, Ian fell asleep. Fell asleep would be the verb, and while studying is modifying that.
Mhm.
Like he fell asleep while studying. That's more information about kind of the manner in which he fell asleep.
Hmm.
And then the one below it, the book lying on the window still belongs to Kathy. Oh, not still belongs to Kathy. On the windowsill belongs to Kathy. I guess it still belongs to her, though, as far as I know. But you can see how the lying is modifying the book. The book is lying.
Mm-hmm.
So it's modifying a noun there. So I guess one of the things that I don't know if it was Dave said or it was at the beginning of this chapter. He's basically gives the impression that we don't want to write at this point in time, memorize all of the different bits and pieces of participles. I think he says to focus more on the grammar.
I think that was on the message he sent to the group.
Okay, I was trying to find it. Can't remember. There's so much information to process here. Andres, if you have something to add, you can go ahead and add it.
Well, I think we could like try to finish this review. I mean, like go through the chapter really quick. And I have an activity I would like to get involved with you all so that we could practice a little bit on this and analyze a little bit on participles, if you agree.
That sounds good.
Yeah. So as Devin mentioned, that there is components related to verbs and components related to nouns, right? So the verbal elements of the participle are the tense, and it is reflected by the tense theme, as we already mentioned. It can be, there are three of them that are used for participles. You, do you remember if future is one of them? Future tense theme is used for participle.
I couldn't hear the question. I'm
There is
sorry.
Is the future tense
It's tricky. Of
the
course.
future tense stem, is it used with a participle?
Um,
So good question.
the present, aorist, and perfect are used.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes, those are the ones we will be using. And remember, always the artist is unaugmented.
Mhm.
Why? Because, as we already mentioned, this is not about time. Is not a verb. It's a participle. So that's why the artist is always unaugmented. If it will have the augment, it would reflect time, but it's not the purpose of participle. So that's why in the perfective, which is the aorist tense stem used for participle, in the perfective tense is not used the augment. Then you
Yeah.
have another element which would be the voice, and well, you can remember the voices used on these verbs, right? And in the verb stems, like active, passive, and middle, both of them. Uh, well, three of them were studied while we were studying verbs, right? Like active um, means that the word is modifying the action of sorry, what the word is doing is modifying the action of the participle, right?
Mhm.
I'm on page 294, and you have the middle voice there as well. Uh, uh, and the middle voice would be that uh, it is modifying is the action of the participle in the way in a way that affects the subject of the sentence. So it's quite the same thing, or the same effect we studied on verbs, but this time is related to the participles. And if the voice is passive, it means that the word it is modifying is receiving the action of the participle. That is the very meaning of a passive voice, right? Receive. So I think the voice is very clear and participles. Participles, is that correct?
Participle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why that doesn't sound good in my mind, but well, participle.
Mhm.
I feel uncomfortable saying it that way. Perhaps because the well, perhaps that's because of the intonation in Spanish, or I don't know. I don't know. But wait, anyway. So any question about the voice?
You guys
Easy
pretty much
peasy.
know. You guys pretty much know active, middle, passive, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like as far as like how it's
Like
sorry,
function.
sorry, something went down wrong. Um, yeah,
I understand it for the most part, but sometimes the middle and the passive can get a little interesting because in the middle, just most of the time, just translate as the active voice, or is it the passive that does it?
It's sort of, yeah. If it's so, most of the time you're going to have the middle passive sharing the same like components, and so context is going to tell you if this is middle or passive. Um, some words are only middle passive, like erkamai. That's a middle passive ending, and it's just going to be like it's just really going to always be translated in the active because there really isn't a passive way to say I go.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. In my mind, I'm just practical. I think it should be active and passive, and whichever one it falls into, there you
Sure.
go.
For intents and purposes, Ericamai would be active, but
Mhm.
in the sense of it uses a certain type of spelling. It follows the middle passive form.
Gotcha.
But it just so happens that that word isn't middle passive in its translation, at least.
So to kind of accompany for all the exceptions, assuming there's a few, I think I remember there being a few that are just middle passive, that have an act, well, not passive, but middle that have like an active. Did they make the middle? I don't know. Like in my, I think I see what you're saying. Like it's either going to be translated one way or the other. Two options, but to follow a pattern, they have two for this middle passive thing because there's only one paradigm technically, I think.
Yeah. And there are certain times where it's going to be a little unclear contextually whether or not this is a middle or whether or not this is functioning as a middle verb or as a passive verb. And you're just going to have to do your best in terms of putting the clues together.
Yeah, plus context will tell you a little bit if the action is, if I'm not wrong, middle voice is about an action that affects the subject, right? Like I do this to myself or so.
And it's really nuanced in most cases. So it's not just always going to be like I hit myself. It's not always going to function that clear cut as a reflexive. It's going to like you're going to see it. It's going to sound active. It's going to be middle, and you're going to be like, okay, is that saying that like I am somehow like the speaker is somehow affected by what he's doing actively? And that's how you, at least when I come across those things, that's kind of how my brain processes it in the moment.
Okay. So
Yeah.
if I'm translating something and it's active voice, I'll translate it as active voice. But if it's middle passive, has a middle passive ending, would you suggest certainly trying the middle passive like take on the verb?
I would
Like,
say that probably when you see a middle passive verb, most times it's going to be passive. But if the passive, like if you're translating, you're like the passive definitely doesn't work here. That makes no sense. Then it's probably going to be middle.
I think context will be really helpful. Like if you're translating something out of context, that there is when it's complicated. But passive will always be passive. I mean, the subject receiving the action. So if somebody's inflicting the action to somebody else, and you can realize on that part of the sentence that person is receiving the action, it will definitely always be passive.
right.
So context will make it always easier, right? Like if you are doing your own Bible study and you are trying to figure out that if that subject is receiving the action, you know it's passive. There is no way it's middle because you already know the context. When you get something out of context is when it comes a little bit harder. But definitely, if it is on this class, at least, I'm pretty sure Dave will understand when you put middle passive because it's out of context. There is no way to know it.
Mm-hmm.
And one more quick question, and I appreciate that. This may sound like a dumb question, but I understand the active. It's actively taking place. It's happening. It's being done. And the passive is like it's being done to you. You're the recipient, kind of. Why is it coined middle? Is it like in between, or is it just I don't know. Is there a reason why it's called middle? You know?
I think it has some maybe aspects of active and passive. where like kind of how we're saying, like the subject is doing the action, but also receiving some effect from that action. So maybe he's doing it, but it's also being done to him.
Oh, so there's like so it's dual kind of sometimes.
Middle. It's in the middle.
So it's somewhere in there. Yeah.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
that's a good way to understand it. Really, is it's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
It could be more focused heavily on the active aspect or the active piece of it. Really, aspect maybe an inappropriate term to use. The more active side of things or the more passive side, but it's somewhere in the middle.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That helps. That helps for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I never thought on it like that, but it makes sense because the action is being done by the subject, and the meaning. I mean, the effects of it is affecting the subject at the same time. So it's right in the middle, right? The active and passive. So yeah. And well, finally, we have the aspect.
Mm-hmm.
As I mentioned, the aspect is when you have the perfect tense theme, this should be translated as continuous action, right? Or if you have the aorist tense theme in the structure of this participle, it's just an undefined action, not necessarily on the past. You don't have any time here. I think absolute time is how Bill Mons call it when you're talking about future, past, or present. That's absolute time, but participles doesn't have that. They have just aspect. So in the aorist, this is an undefined action, and in the perfect is just a completed action. And I think in the participle, it is more called like imperfective, combinative, and
Perfect.
perfective, or imperfective, perfective, and combinative, right? So in that order: present, aorist, and passive. So it will talk you more about the nature of the tense than time, even when you are using. And well, perhaps when we get into this, like adjectival uh, participle or participle, participle, still adjectival participle, you will realize they have a person and number attached to it, right? Like they will have the case, they will have case, number, and person, because they will part of the structure of them when they are modifying a subject would include these case endings, right? So, well, there is 4 chapters of this. I know in chapter 26 is like very general, and we could feel like there is some missing information. And absolutely yes, because definitely next 4 chapters will clarify perhaps a little bit of that uh, um, that information who's missing.
I
But
think, Andres, if I can just maybe add a little thought here. I think that he does that for a reason, and maybe a good reason. To when he introduces the idea of participles, it's more general information. It's really just prepping your mind to when you see these things in action, when you see them actually being used and actually being applied, you're like, oh, I kind of sort of remember some of these things. Like it starts to make sense instead of just throwing it at you all at once, and you're like, "What is this?"
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I agree. Plus, because you already know verbs and nouns, you will be like, "Oh yes, this is almost obvious." Oh, this is this case ending just attached to this, so that makes sense. You already know most of the information you need about uh, participles. In fact, the morpheme chart of participles is basically what you are missing to be given to you, like to know when to use nt or ot or meno or mene and those things. That's the only thing you're missing. But then you will be like, oh, I understand this. Oh, this is this. Will be easier. Will be easier. And you both are, well, you three are pretty smart. So I'm sure that will not be a problem for you. So if you don't have any question, I would like to go to the activity uh, I mentioned.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so we will use the Canva. I will share it here. Um,
Will we need to write on the Canva?
I don't know if you would need to go into that. Let's
Okay.
try with the first one. I don't
I
think it's
just I just
necessary.
want to make sure because I'm running this through my iPad, and if I need to swap over.
Yeah, I don't think it would be necessary because it's more about like what I want you to do is like reading and see what words you recognize and see if you're able to recognize some participles. So it's more about that.
I'll read this one.
So let's do the first one. That's Matthew 28, 19. Who wants to start?
I don't mind doing it.
Okay.
I'll read it. I'll attempt to read it. Pareu the or thantes. Pareu thantes or thintes. Un mathe teu site panta ta ethne. Probably really butchered that, but um
You said Matthew 28:19 very clearly. I'll give you that.
yeah. Yeah.
Oh, you were talking in Greek and I
Oh.
listened like English. So that was just going perfect. Yeah.
So I know like can be like therefore.
hmm Do you recognize any other word?
The pareu uh from like pareu samai
I think it's
or not
my.
pareu mai.
Yeah, I would. It sounds funny. I would say poruomai, like the EU kind of being a diphthong.
Oh,
Poru.
okay. think that
Do you recognize the participle there?
if I was to say there was a participle, I'd say it was the mathe teu sate or sate.
Mm,
Would that be the participle?
What is calling out to you to tell you that?
I feel like the case ending is kind of on that, and maybe
So,
I'm wrong on that.
so check this out. I'm sure you guys covered it. I know it's a lot of information, but participles don't have case endings.
Oh, well,
so
then,
that's your
then
hint. It is not a. It is not a participle.
okay. I thought they did have case endings if they're working.
Maybe they do, and I thought that I read that they didn't, but
You'd probably be more right than I am, and not probably because as an adjective, the participle agrees with case number and gender.
it does. Okay, no, I'm wrong. Sorry, I was wrong. It definitely has a case ending.
But I don't
Yeah,
know
what
if
they
it's
don't have
acting. I
is
don't know if it's
personal
acting as
endings.
a
Personal endings. Yeah, they didn't.
personal endings. Okay.
Okay, so I wasn't totally way off, but I was off.
No. I get where you're coming from with that. So I don't know if it's the participle. I don't really know that word. So
You know the word mathetes?
they taste. I feel like that has to do with like disciples.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
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 I will say, usually when I see a sigma close to the end, it makes me think of future. But I know that there's nuances and tense formatives.
Yeah.
There
Um,
is also a tense formative where it's not just sigma, but sigma alpha.
So this would be in the aorist with the sigma alpha
I'd have to let me look at my chart.
epsilon.
Let me see what
It's
it
in
looks like
the.
on the chart.
Well, I hope that's
Yeah,
okay. I'm
it's
looking
an
at the chart.
artist.
I was looking at the chart,
Yeah.
if that's all right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Keep
Yeah.
talking.
So it's
Oh
an
no, you look the
orist.
chart? No, you're
Yeah.
wrong in that case. You cannot look at the chart.
But there's
I'm
Definitely
no
not.
sorry.
there's no
You're
I'm
augment.
banned
sorry.
from this class.
There's
Okay.
no
So
augment
here's.
though.
Yeah, I was about to say that there's no augment on this.
Um, does the aorist have to have an augment?
Oh yes.
Eris has an augment. It's the future that doesn't.
Hmm.
Unless it falls underneath like one of those special kind of words. Like akuo doesn't have a change to it, but that's in the like duplication of the perfect.
Well, maybe that's because it's an imperative.
Ooh, an imperative.
Yeah. You need
Yeah.
to pass 4
Oh,
chapters on
look, all right.
participles
Isn't it?
before
It
you get
is.
there.
Chapter 33 covers imperative aorist, and there's no augment.
Chapter what?
Chapter 33.
Well, we
Oh,
ain't even in the chapter 33 yet.
No, we're not.
okay.
But the te at the end is characteristic of an imperative.
Okay.
You you disciple.
Oh, okay. So it's like you making disciples. Because
You
that's,
you make disciples. You disciple as a verb.
yeah.
Disciple as a verb.
Well, we talked about imperatives. Imperative, this is that command,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So that this is a command given by I'm guessing this is Jesus here.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a command given.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the command here?
So,
In the context
well,
of the Great
we
Commission.
talk about making disciples. So, so the
Yeah.
command is making those disciples.
Yeah. We know the context is the Great Commission, right? Matthew 28:19.
Yeah.
What are some things that you've heard about about the Great Commission that's like, we're commanded to what?
To go.
When you look at the Greek here, is it a command to go?
No.
Is it
No,
an
if that's in the imperative is to make disciples.
boom?
That's really cool. So go is the pareu
Or authentis?
Repentance.
thentes.
Yeah.
Would
And
that
that
be
is
participle then?
So the
is the
test is not
participle.
the
Mm.
go is not an imperative. That's
Well,
just
I think remember you're dealing with a participle is related to the verb. So the imperative of the verb, which the participle is modifying, is still applying on the idea, although the participle itself doesn't gives that imperative idea. It is directly related to the verb it is modifying, right? So let me try to go to a practical thing on this verse. So you already got to the conclusion that you have the principal verb on this sentence, which would be which one?
the go,
No.
the
We're talking about
principal
the main
verb.
verb. So the main verb would be the mathe to
So it would be making disciples.
Not making.
Make disciples.
You make disciples. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the imperative.
So I'm sorry. You go ahead.
So that's your verb on this sentence.
Okay.
Then you have panta, which means all or every, right? Ta, you know that's an article, and you have ethne, like ethnic, or
Hmm.
that means nations, right? So pantata ethne, all the nations. Therefore, you already mentioned it. So you have the verb, and you have peruomai, which means
To go.
to go, but you have it in participle. And what are participles?
ing going
Ang.
going
So
going making disciples.
Not making
Therefore,
disciples.
going
You're trying to make disciples participle when you say making.
So it's just if we were to translate this, would we put the ing on the go?
That's part of the art of translation.
Yeah, because it doesn't say going make disciples.
So
It says
there,
go therefore.
Technically, it does.
I'm saying like in the English translation of it,
Yeah.
but like if we were to literally translate this, it would be going.
Going, therefore,
Yeah,
you make disciples,
yeah.
or you disciple all the nations.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So how would you disciple?
How would you
It's an
disciple?
adverb. It's an adverb. How will you disciple according to this?
by going.
By going.
Having gone or going, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is and well, I think this is a participle that is built on um, this is built as an aorist, right? So when aorist is the aspect is an undefined action, right? Or perfective. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so on page
I think.
293, um, what is the, let me check. What is the morpheme used for perfective uh,
The new tau.
new tau? What do you have here?
The new tau.
You have the new tau.
Hmm.
So does it make sense what I'm trying to do with you?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So and this also have this also has a theological significance because if going is as participle is an action related to go, I mean to make disciples. That means that as we go, right? Um, uh, I mean, my idea is disciple making includes an element of going, right? That's what I want to say.
Hmm.
That's why the participle is important here because uh, the imperative of matheteusate, is emphasizing that disciple making includes an element of going. That's why it's important to recognize here what is the participle. Does that make some sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
So here's a thought, because Porthentis is giving some extra clarification to Mathetusate. Um, I think that because Mathetusate is an imperative, that could be why translators have decided to go with go, because go carries the force of a command, an
Yeah.
imperative, just as the verb it's modifying does.
Yeah. It kind of absorbs the imperative idea of the main verb, right?
Hmm.
Because it's the verb it is modifying.
Mm-hmm.
So let's try with the next one. The next one it's more tricky, but I will this will be helpful for next class and also to learn a little bit on participles. Jake, would you like to read it?
Sure. Um.
That's John 3:16, a very well-known verse.
Hina pas ho pistuon es auton me apoletai. The things that
Mm.
stick out are ace, four, on two maybe. Pistuon looks like a genitive form of to believe. Believe,
You got something important there.
but there's the article there, so it makes me think it's a noun. Um, but it may not be. Uh, apoletai. Uh, I don't see any new towels in there, so maybe the tie, but
That's what I was looking for was new
that
towel.
was a tie is like the tie has got to be second person because it sounds like with the epsilon.
We can see the ending on that. My side tie. That's a middle passive verb, right?
Which one?
Tie at the end. Tie.
Oh, is it? It. Yeah. It would be middle passive. Uh, Everything else is Alton. That's what. Wait. Is it neuter nominative or is it accusative masculine?
Depends on the context.
Or is it? I can't remember. I don't know.
Do you remember what the word pos is?
I should. I'm just gonna guess four. No.
Think pantheism.
Multiple.
All.
All. Okay. Pos. All.
I think in the last verse we saw something related to that, right?
Yeah.
Pantheist.
Every. All. Yeah.
I know Andres caught what you said earlier, and I did too. And I thought we need to go back to that. When you said pistuon was like a verb, and it had a genitive ending. I thought
I was like, oh yeah, that's got to be a noun. Okay.
genitive is for nouns, right? But pistuo is a verb.
Okay.
So which one is the participle there?
Would it?
Well, maybe pistuon is a participle.
Yeah,
it's got
because
some funky stuff
would
going
it?
on.
And I could be very off on this, but wouldn't the towel drop off?
Well, you're right. You're right. In fact, you can see the explanation of it in page, let me see, 302, I think, with Luo. Happens the very same thing. So you can see the end note, number 6, explains exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, page 302.
Yeah, 302. No
In the
case.
paradigm?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you have Luon, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it has a number 6 as
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I
note,
see what you're
and
saying.
it says no case ending is used. The T drops off because it cannot stand at the end of a word. That's the noun rule number 8.
Yeah.
And
So
the Omicron lengthens to omega to compensate the loss. So Luon becomes to Luon, right?
okay. Yeah.
So that thing is exactly what is happening here. That's why you don't have the NT that is so characteristic of participles.
Mm-hmm.
But you got it. I told you, you're smart. What of you?
What is the noun form of the verb to believe? Like, what is belief? Like the noun. I know it's similar.
Pistis.
Oh, pistis. That's right. Okay.
No, you're talking about the Greek. Sorry. I was like,
Yeah.
belief. Those are the noun forms.
Yeah, pistis.
We wouldn't talk about Greek in a Greek class.
Yeah.
So,
But
pas means all. Oh, go ahead, Sam.
no, I guess as we get more into it, I'll understand it. But like 26.10 shows that this new tau is like in the inside of the word. I didn't know it could come at the very end of one as like the ending itself.
Hmm.
Because it like the imperfective, it shows it with ace at the end of it, and then ace, and that could be just that specific word. I'm not saying that's the end all be all. I've learned with Greek there's always exceptions to the exceptions, but but yeah, but I thought it was okay. So it's gonna come in, or like the in the combinative, the omicron tau. I thought it'd be like more in the middle of the word. I didn't know it could
What is
come
the
at the
question
end.
again? Sorry.
Well, I was just saying, I guess it's not really a question in a sense of, I didn't know that the new tau could come at the end of a word. And I guess that's with, as we actually get into it, we've just done overview
Oh, you
because
mean
it,
like here in Pistuon?
yes, yeah, yeah.
Well,
I
that's
didn't know it could come at
because
the end.
it comes at the end, because if you remember the nouns on the nominative singular, uh, let me no, yeah, nominative singular doesn't have an ending for, well, that would be for feminine, right?
Third declension.
Yeah, third declension. Sorry.
313.
Yeah, I was like, like when you're in a pool trying to save your life, just
Oh,
Okay.
and Sam, check this out. So on that paradigm on page 302,
Yeah.
the nominative singular course ends without, because it follows the nominative singular thing, which is it doesn't really have an ending.
Hmm.
But the nominative plural is what we're looking at. Is well, not here, but the one we looked at before with the es, the epsilon sigma ending.
Yeah. Okay. So in the singular, it could come at the end. Just depends on, if it's in the plural or that. Okay.
So the nominative singular is not going to have an ending unless
Yeah.
it's the second declension.
Yeah. But here, this is third declension, the pistu.
Yeah, third declension has a stem ending and a consonant.
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to make sure. Like I said, I looked at that and I was like, okay, I'm looking in the middle of those words. Like, okay, where is this new towel here?
Hmm.
Okay. That makes sense.
could you say that again, Devin?
So the rule for third declensions is that it has a stem ending in a consonant. Second declension has a stem ending in a vowel, but the morpheme functions with the stem in participles. So where you have the endings like the genitive ending omicron sigma, that would be added on. It would count luant as the stem instead of just lu. That's kind of how it's functioning, at least.
Yeah, yeah, get
Like
you.
a mermaid.
Yeah.
And if you look at page 304, the second declension rules is that the stem ends in a vowel. Well, it's using lu in both cases, but the difference is it counts the amena as part of the stem in terms of following that second declension pattern.
Hmm. Get you. Yeah.
I know that was kind of a lot for where we're at now. We don't need to get into
Yeah,
it.
we are not even on that chapter, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
But I thought it was gonna be interesting to, well, in fact, what happened with Jake, he realized, oh, there is a verb here, and it finished like a noun. What's happening here, right? So
Yeah.
you have that as participle.
I think you were getting ready to translate, Jake. You want to go ahead and give that a shot?
Oh man. Well, there's still so many pieces I'm missing here,
It's okay.
but
Just do what you can.
if pos is all and hoc pistuon is Oh boy. Okay. So the on, when I'm thinking of like a noun, I'm thinking of plural genitive. But this is a verb. So what was it in the paradigm? Was it uh oh
Pistuon would be believing because it's a participle.
I will help you a little bit because we haven't gone through that kind of verbs. So that would be like apolitai. No, apolitai, not thigh. Apolitai. Uh, it's an aorist subjunctive in the middle voice. So we haven't gone through subjunctive yet. So that's why I'm helping you with that. And it would be like should perish.
Yeah. Like apoluo, which is loose away from, which also carries the sense of destroy
Yeah.
okay.
So
or perish.
So
And may is a negative particle.
so
So
for
it brings that. Oh, I'm sorry, Jake. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, I don't want to help you.
which by the way, I think it's one of the notes on chapter 26 that when there is participles instead of ooh, it is me, right? For the negative. Let me see.
I'm trying to figure out where pistuon, where the on fits in all these paradigms were shown Tuesday.
Yeah, 26:16 says negation. The negation "oo" is normally used in the indicative. Since the participle is not in an indicative form, participles are usually negated by "me," which has the same meaning than as "oo." So I think this could be another hint to realize when you have participles there, the negation.
Sure. Well, now that I'm looking at the chapter, I don't see any paradigms. So did he just kind of fast forward through the next few chapters or something?
No, we just did overview.
Okay. So where's the paradigms for?
Chapter 27.
Oh, okay.
See, but with this, to me right now, we could just say believing. Would I be wrong in that? Because it's adding that ing because that's the participle there.
Yeah, for
That
now.
would be right
For now.
because um, it's a continuous action kind of participle, right? It's in the present tense theme. It's imperfective. So yes, believing would be correct.
How would you translate it like any other way with all these paradigms? So if it's nominative singular, third declension, but then again it's a verb. Uh, like luon, like that's the one that looks the closest to it. Nominative singular,
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
but like I don't see how that can be believing can be a subject.
It's not. It's modifying. It's modifying the subject.
Yeah, that's the function that the adjectival function of the participle. It doesn't
Okay.
substitute the subject. It modifies it.
I think that's also we also can know that because of the article that's used there.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. That's masculine.
Yeah, masculine singular. You're right.
So it's not the subject at all. It just modifies the subject.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so the whole paradigm isn't about how the word is translated itself, but it's about how it modifies the word it's pointing back towards. So, like if this was in the genitive and it was "pis du ontos," would it be modifying?
The
Then
paradigm
it
will
would be
definitely help you to find the subject sometimes because you will, oh, this is nominative singular case ending for this participle, and I have this nominative singular subject here. So this participle is for this, right? Or when you are doing the parsing, the paradigm will definitely help you, right? Though in the translation, not necessarily will reflect the gender or or the number, like believing doesn't tell you if that's feminine or masculine or neuter or if it's a singular plural. It just believing.
So when
But
you recognize it's a participle, you're just like, okay, you just take the typical definition and add an ing. And so no matter what the ending is, it really does, well, it matters, but it doesn't matter in translating
uh, at
It
least
it's
in
gonna
most
tell
of the
you
case.
it's going to tell you contextually what it's being linked to.
Mhm.
it. So if it was in the genitive case, so pis du on tos, it would point back to not the subject, that's nominative. It would point back to something being possessed.
It would point to probably a genitive noun
Okay.
if there was a genitive
In the
noun.
genitive case.
Again, it's going to agree with the thing that it's modifying.
Okay. Okay. So out of all these um nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, singular, plural, masculine, feminine, neuter, out of this entire paradigm, it's just gonna be translated the same, essentially.
I guess, yeah. Same
Uh,
translation, but
I mean,
not
it makes
linked.
sense. I figured I'd ask because I was like, I was thinking on. I was like, I wonder how you translate it differently. And I was like, oh, I guess in the sense of translating that word pistuon, it doesn't matter what ending it is. If it's a participle or at least a present imperfect participle, it'll be the word plus ing. I'm assuming.
I think in translation it will be affected by either by its voice. I mean, like sometimes will be passive, sometimes will be uh, active, sometimes it will be middle. So when you are translating that, it will have something to do.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, because there's a whole paradigm for that. Okay, for middle passive.
I would also think that when you're doing genitive and dative, that you're probably going to run into some helping words, but you're still going to have the participle feel, which is ing.
Okay.
Like maybe for a dative, you would probably find a preposition with it. I would guess, and you might have something like by, I don't know, by running, or um, of, I don't know, speaking of healing, or something like that. So kind of helping words, but for the most part, yeah, it's just going to be just think of it in the most basic sense you can, which is here believing.
Yeah. Jack, do you remember John 3:16 by memory?
Mm-hmm.
What does it says?
For God, let me pull my Bible out. No, I'm joking. For God so loved the world that He gave His only Son, that whosoever, or all, I guess in this case, or whosoever, should believe in Him should not perish, or will not perish, but generally should not perish,
Whosoever
Okay,
believes
have
in him.
everlasting life.
like hina is like Sadat. That's in fact how it's translated in Spanish, Sadat. So ho pas or pas ho, what would be
Okay.
it? What would be it?
You said I was so that.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. And what was your next question? I apologize.
So what would be ho pas or pas ho? Like you have it here.
So that whoever believes in him,
No. Well,
who,
you're
all,
partially right.
so that all believing in him.
Or the one. Look that like the article is singular. Ho.
Right.
But it is used with pos, which is an inclusive. So I would say probably instead of saying all the one believing, I would say everyone believing.
Everyone. Yeah, that's perfect. The perfect translation. Perfecto.
Hmm.
Uh,
Everyone
so,
believing.
so that everyone. So what is the participle?
Pistuon, believing,
How
Yeah.
would you translate that?
believing.
Everyone believing. There you go.
Everyone believing. Okay.
So what theological impact does it has that everyone believing?
That
Don't you think it suggests like an ongoing fed rather than one time situation, one time decision? Believing it's an ongoing effect of your mental effort to believe. So who's not gonna perish? Who's me apolitai? Is me apolitai pas ho pisteuon? The one who is in that will not perish. The one who is continuously believing. That's why just be baptized is not enough. That's why when somebody just say amen to a sinner's prayer, that's not a part of completely unscriptural, is not enough because faith is continuous if or should be continuous if you don't want to perish. If you want me apolitai, you need to be believing continuously,
Yeah.
or you will
Piston
perish.
is auton.
I I gotta step away. Someone's here.
Okay.
Does it make sense what I want to show
yeah,
you?
yeah. The continual action of believing can refute once saved, always saved.
Yeah, and you can see that not by a verb, by a participle. We were accustomed to see continuous actions by verbs, but now we can see a participle can give us some insight as well on a quality of the noun. Is that correct?
Say it again.
Uh, we were accustomed to see continuous actions just through verbs,
Mm-hmm.
but now we can see that
Yeah.
a participle can give us a description of the continuous effect or condition of the noun,
Mm-hmm.
right? Without a verb helping us.
Yeah. So okay. So good point. So if you were to take out the participle here and um, the prepositional phrase asauton, you would be left with hina pas me apolitai, which is so that everyone will not perish. But there's a condition with the participle given. It's not that everyone will not perish, it's that everyone believing in him or unto him will not perish.
Mhm.
It's conditional. And that directly refutes the universalist idea of salvation, which is that Jesus died for everyone, and therefore everyone
Mhm.
will go to heaven.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, Spanish translation of this doesn't make justice to what the Holy Spirit was trying to say. Like in Spanish, it's like the one who believe will not perish, but is the one believing or the believing one will not perish or should not perish, right?
The English carries the idea of the present tense, which is it's a present active participle, but it loses some of the force. It loses
Yeah,
some of the effect.
yeah. That's what happens when you translate, sadly. But it also shows us that the richness, if that is a word, of the
Yeah,
Greek language. And that's kind of the retribution you have when you love the Word of God enough to try to understand biblical languages, and you want more of it so you can strike these things that enrich you and help you to grow spiritually too.
yeah.
So, well, I don't want to preach you, and I think we already run out of time. So, thank you so much for your time.
No, thank y'all.
Thank you
This has
guys.
helped out a lot to kind of like prepare for what we're about to get into with
Yeah.
participles.
Well, now you can see how they're functioning, and you have some familiarity with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Functioning.
Well, especially with
Mhm.
like this one, because I'd still be underneath the assumption of like, okay, where's that new towel? In the middle of it,
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah, and that really is all we're trying to help you guys do is to build familiarity, not to make you get it all at once, but so that you're more exposed, and so you just learn bits and pieces as you go, and you kind of collect that information, and it actually builds into something.
yeah, no, this has been really good. Thank y'all.
Yeah, thank you guys.
You're
Good
very welcome.
idea with the exercises, Andres. That's good.
Yeah, that I like this. This helped out a ton.
Yeah, so I will finish the live stream here.
Okay.